opening up the key change, the keyhole, and just looking outside. I'm like, no.
So then you get into the whole industry of like adult films. Was it what you expected doing your first scene? So you had me doing moonsaults off the top rope.
Oh my God.
I have implants.
I feel like I know him from somewhere. Why?
Why not?
I mean, I thought about it for a long while before I did it. I mean, I got a lot of uproar from the whole industry, but who are they to judge me?
Yeah, I mean, what are they?
They can all go to hell. They don't pay my bills.
No, you got a point.
And that's that.
Happy Monday, everyone, and thank you so much for joining me for this episode of Off the Rails with Jasmine St. Clair. There has been a lot going on in the world, and I know that now and again it's sort of nice to step back from the world and read books. Everyone knows that I'm a very big fan of books, not because of the way they smell, but just the actual, going in there and diving in there and everything, and just sort of seeing what's going on. First, I'd like to say thank you to everyone joining the stream today. Hi, Ben. Hi, Paul. Hi, Michael. I see some new people in here. Scott, how are you? And a few others. John J., what's going on? Yeah. Happy Monday, everyone. And thank you so much for joining me for another episode of Off the Rails. And don't forget, guys, if you are in the market for a really good coffee, check out Super Massive Black Coffee. Sorry about that. And if you go into Supermassive Black Coffee, make sure to use the code MBN for 20% off. But Supermassive Black Coffee is the way to go for coffee. Yeah. So I see everyone just joining me now. Heading over to the comments. Hey, Steve, how are you? Happy Monday, everyone. Hey, Hellstrom, how are you? There's been a lot going on in LA, and I know everyone's been keeping up on the news around town, and it's been extremely wild. I've never seen anything like this. I feel as though we're reliving the whole Summer of Love a few years ago when we had the BLM riots, but this is just something on a whole other level I've never seen before. Hey, Jamal, how are you? So, yeah. Anyway, I decided to bring on someone a little different today. I know normally we have wrestlers, entertainers, and I've been reading this amazing book by Lex Jurgen. I don't know if anyone has picked it up yet, but it is called Man Rules, 99 Rules for Remasculating the Millennial Male. So the Beginner's Guide to Manhood, 99 Rules for Remasculating the Millennial Male, which I feel a lot of people could use, and maybe some people may not want to read it because so much of it hits so close to home, but it makes a great Father's Day gift. It is available on Amazon now. So it's by Lex Jurgen, and it's 99 Rules for Remasculating the Millennial Male. I don't know if anyone's even picked up the book yet, but it tackles a lot of, I had a really good read. I went through it twice already, and I've definitely underlined and taken notes on quite a few of these things. But I think that there's stuff to be learned for everyone, like both men and women. But I do know that this makes a really wonderful gift for Father's Day, or just if you want to give someone a really cool gift that's something different. Some guys need rules these days. Yeah, but so do a lot of women. I mean, if you go back into this whole Me Too movement, at the time that it started, it was Dario Argenta's daughter who was dating, I think, Anthony Bourdain at one point. And that was the one who started this whole movement with that other one, Rose McGowan. And little did anyone know, these girls were, having sex with really young guys too. And with Rose McGowan, who knows, maybe her whole thing was that, who was the guy, Harvey Weinstein, didn't want to give her a movie role. Maybe that's what it was. Then it opened up this whole can of worms that people going back as far as 10, 20 years, like even with Dustin Hoffman and other actors, could come out years later and accuse men of rape. In a way, I feel as though it's somehow demasculized men. Like it has demasculated the American male, especially the millennial male, to the point where they get afraid to speak to women. They don't want to speak to women. They don't want to even go on an app to talk to them. And it's become so much more difficult these days for people to meet one another. I feel as though apps are the most impersonal way to meet someone. You can't go on an app and just get a good read on someone. it's like writing the perfect personals ads. Someone said it's witchcraft. Yes, Paul, it is witchcraft indeed. Absolutely. Those of you just joining the stream, thank you so much for joining me. And do not forget, if you are in the market for a really strong coffee, do not forget to pick up Supermassive Black Coffee. Head on over there and use the code MBN for 20% off. It's actually pretty good stuff. I use it in the middle of the day to sort of refuel now and again. And today's guest is Lex Jurgen. Do not forget to pick up his book, Man Rules, The Beginner's Guide to Manhood, 99 Rules for Remasculating the Millennial Male. It's a very interesting read for sure. I believe that he did have a podcast at one point that focused a lot on a lot of things in this book, a lot of rules and regulations. But it just, there's so many things I feel as though females put out there that misunderstand. It causes a lot of miscommunication with guys. They call them, some of them think their behavior is more of an asshole than just being assertive. But guys are supposed to be assertive. People are supposed to be assertive in general. But I guess it's a lot different these days when you have something like Me Too and everyone complaining about language and, the way you say something. Okay, Michael Doherty said something important. It's hard to an extent, but you have to have confidence when you approach a woman. But here's the thing. I feel as though a lot of women confuse confidence with being inappropriate. And maybe that's just their own way of seeing things because they've been so brainwashed by this fourth wave of feminism. And I do not personally believe in modern day feminism because modern day feminism hates men. Modern day feminism teaches women to be the man. Modern day feminism teaches women, you don't need a man. They're all toxic. Well, then who do you call when you decide you need help moving or lifting something super heavy? Do you call toxic masculinity? And because of instances like this, guys are afraid to speak to women. I mean, that's just me. I don't know, but I think Lex's book is super important in this day and age because guys need to know. Like guys need to know exactly what it is, how to get back to basics, how to talk to women. Don't use an app because apps are so impersonal. And if they're speaking to you on an app, chances are they're speaking to like 5 or 6 other people. So you just never know. But anyway, I see my guest in the waiting room, so I will welcome to the show, Mr. Lex Jurgen. Hi, Lex. How are you?
Well, I'm doing great. How are you? That was some introduction there. Feel very empowered. You're very impassioned about this topic, which I love. It's unusual, obviously, to have a female. Less usual to have a female host who's feels sort of the same way, simpatico, about how I do about what's happening to certainly American males. I can't speak to other countries because I don't travel a lot. But certainly for the American male, I think we have some agreement. I think a lot of women do agree with this. And if I could preface this by saying I am a comedy writer, I'm a humor writer. And so everything in my book should be taken with a grain of salt. I'm not a Tate brother. I'm not a lifter, a gym bro, all that stuff. I'm not teaching about masculinity and conquering women and all that type of stuff. This is really about me being shocked by how unmasculated sort of millennials are and now Gen Z are, and decided I need to write a book about it, and sort of sitting around with my buddies and sort of picking up all the things that we notice that younger guys are missing these days, and sort of taking a humorous look at it. And at the same time, they're all very real. These are very real topics. But I do focus on the humorous sort of side of it in saying these rules, as opposed to conquer, annihilate, destroy, man rule. This is about rules for men to be better for their women. So it's a very different sort of view of this versus the ultra masculine. I don't subscribe to toxic masculinity as a real topic, but there are certainly men who are toxic, just like there are women who are toxic. So I'm not. I hope I'm not toxic. I try to be funny. So we'll see how that goes. Thank you for having me, by the way.
Well, you're not toxic, by the way, and nothing you said in here was toxic, but I feel a lot of it is real because page 50 has stuck out to me the most. So page 50 in this book, guys, Lex does say that when you're naked, women strictly tolerate looking at you naked. And I'm not saying guys are ugly or genitalia is ugly. It's just That is the truth. Like, there's so many different truths in this. Have you ever experienced any of these situations in real life? Besides that one, probably.
Oh yeah. The impetus for writing the book was actually some years ago. I was sitting at a business meeting with a younger guy, professional. We were having lunch, and in the middle of lunch, he pulls out a lanyard around his neck with the chapstick on it, and starts moistening his lips. And I thought, well, that's odd. I mean, he did it like he probably does it 1,000 times a day and done it for many years. And I guess other people do it. I thought, well, that's really odd. I've not seen that before. And sort of the company of men that I keep would not pull out a chapstick or a lip gloss or moistener and start moistening their lips while they're with other men. Well, they're with women too, but with other men. And I thought, like, Jesus, that's like, and he was a really nice guy, successful guy, all this stuff in his 20s. And I thought, that's just not okay. We don't do that. And then it made me start thinking about, wow, I'm older now. I'm in my 40s at the time. And like, this is a different generation. And these guys see this as perfectly okay. And then I started examining what else do they see as perfectly okay that to guys my age who went through what I went through growing up, which is very, very typical sort of growing up male in my age, would just laugh at and just think ridiculous and never, ever think to pull out a lip gloss and start moisturizing their lips in the middle of a business meeting. And so that was actually the first one. And so most of these I have experienced along the way. And also I would say when I did the media tour for my book, I met a lot of women millennial women who had these complaints about men that appear in my book. So it wasn't just like a man's view. This is something really, I think, more women notice than men notice about, say, men under 35 now, and how they've grown up very differently than their fathers probably grew up, and their uncles and teachers and males they saw when they were younger. And now they're into dating and marrying and stuff. And they're seeing these men and they're like, these aren't the men I remember growing up, the older men I remember growing up. And now this is my choice. I have these, there's always good guys, of course, but I got lip gloss guy. I have to compete with him. Like he's going to be borrowing my cosmetics and trimming his hairs and doing his makeup and other things like that. I don't want that, So they definitely have experienced all of these, I think, before.
Yes, I did notice a friend of mine who's middle-aged. He's in his late 50s, mid to late 50s. He's on Hinge, which is a dating app, by the way. And he gets younger girls, like 19, 20, 21. And I tell him they're like way too old for him. That's probably his future mother-in-law, because to me, the ideal age for an 80-year-old man, the girlfriend should be 18 or 19 years old. But I guess the whole pattern is that it's difficult for them to date guys their own age because they can't communicate. They cannot hold conversations about politics, world affairs, traveling, cuisine, things like that. So do you think that could be another reason why a lot of these younger girls might not really want to date within their age group?
I think it's a whole thing. It's the social aspect of it. It's like, one thing you can't get away from is genetics, right? And how we're sort of born and the animals inside of us. And, generically, not everybody, I never say this applies to everybody, but women look for men archetypes and men look for female. Let's say female, because I know there's a lot of discussion about gender these days. But let's say women look for male archetypes. And those start with their dad, their uncle, their teachers or coaches, other men they saw when they were growing up. That's sort of where their archetypes. And then men look for females who sort of fit a female archetype. And there's all differences in between that, but there's some basic stuff that I think I'd imagine you can speak more to the female side, because I write books for men. I don't understand women at all.
Good luck.
I don't think any man really does, which is one reason you have the book and try to help, but is that it's a social, it's emotional, it's financial and economic. It's a lot of young men don't have full-time jobs these days. They live at home. Their mom does their laundry. They do all sorts of other stuff that I imagine women would be like, well, wait a minute. I don't want to be his mom. I want to be his wife or his girlfriend and a partner. But this guy's not ready on all these different levels to be an actual partner of mine. He's not an equal. He's not a bad guy. He's a nice guy, but he's not an equal to me in terms of like his core sort of life skills. And I don't want to carry. I mean, the idea for a woman that you have to carry the man is I don't care if feminists say that's what we're happy with that and all the other things. I think there's a subconscious in there in some part of your brain I don't know the name of, which tells women like no, like I have sort of like I only have so many eggs, right? and And I'm deciding who gets those eggs. And it's not the guy, who's living in his parents' basement, who's playing video games all day, whose mother does his laundry. Even if he's hot and even if he's funny and all this other stuff, there's something in the back of the brain saying, I need a guy who's so I'm going to be at least a partner caretaker. And the one comment I got from women the most, which really sort of surprised me, I didn't really realize, was that younger men check in a lot. They feel a need to constantly check in, and it started probably being raised by their moms or by whatever the culture, but they're always texting, calling, checking in, making sure things are okay, getting permission, all these kinds of sort of juvenile things. And these are guys in their 20s, and they just have a constant need for this sort of affirmation, connection, approval, that men shouldn't really have that, right? That's not what women are. They're not looking to be this guy's mom, right? They want to be the girl. They want to be the girlfriend, the partner, and not the caretaker.
Well, there are some women that like to, is it demasculate?
I call it emasculating, remasculating. It's
a lot of them like to emasculate men. Yeah. So I had a friend that married her boyfriend, they're now husband and wife. I don't know how much longer it's going to last, but he would wear her trousers. He would basically wear her clothes. And there were so many times when she would basically snipe at him whenever we were out, just having drinks or dinner. And it was really sad because I don't get how belittling someone in front of your friends or in a public place puts a guy in a pedestal.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, I mean, that's unhealthy in both directions. Obviously, I mean, certainly in public. I mean, I didn't have a rule we only had 99 rules, and I didn't come up with "don't wear your wife's trousers" because I figured that one was sort of known. That one was sort of known, right? It's don't put on your wife's clothes. I mean, well, you're in private, whatever you do, whatever you enjoy, but don't go out wearing your wife's clothing. I didn't think that didn't make my top 99 list, but I assumed that was a given. But I think it's all relationships to some extent are power, right? There's some kind of power relationship. And ideally it's equal in your relationships. But I think when men are shrinking back like they are in all these sorts of ways, it's not just the feminist teachings of the 70s and 80s and so forth, but there's just sort of a natural sort of abuser, sort of submissive role that takes place. And it's sort of this happens at work, this happens in personal relationships, this happens in politics. We see when someone starts shrinking back, the other person starts asserting themselves. And it's just sort of a natural, if you have dogs or cats at home, you see this too, right? Multiple ones. One of them is, starts pulling back and the other one becomes naturally more dominant. Even if they weren't before, when you introduce somebody new who pulls back. So I think it's a natural instinct probably of these women when their men are shrinking back and wearing their clothes, that they become more masculine or become more dominant, right? Just because nobody's there, nobody's doing it, right? Nobody's taking that role in this relationship. So they just take it, and maybe they don't even want to be that way, but it's sort of just they fall into that sort of naturally.
Yeah, I think on page 154, you cover the whole issue about skinny jeans. Skinny jeans do not belong in a man's drawer, and it does not belong in a man's drawer, which is right. It does not belong in a man's drawer unless you're wearing your wife's drawers or something like that, or underwear. And that's and men do not go topless, by the way. That's another thing I see at the gym all the time. I don't think it's appropriate. I don't want to hear you groan. I don't want to see you sweat. And I don't want to see you without your shirt. Even in public, you see these guys just taking it all out, and I don't feel it's appropriate. I do not feel people dress appropriately to even go into a restaurant like Hillstone's or Houston's, whatever it's called. And it has a dress code, no sneakers, no sweats. What do you think it is that inspires millennial males to go out in sweats to a nice place to eat? Or jeans? You can tell I'm a very casual person at home, especially at home, and so I'm not going to give wardrobe advice, but I have some certain rules, which is dressing right for the occasion, right? Which is when you go out for an occasion, you dress right for that occasion. You don't need to be the best dressed person in the room. You don't need to be a fashion model. If it's a formal occasion, you need a suit, and a tie. And if you go out to a decent restaurant, you need a dress shirt and a pair of slacks, right? It's not that hard to figure out. So I think part of it is just, again, how kids are being raised and how the boys are being raised. And there's nothing really cool about necessarily being underdressed in a formal occasion. Now, if you're in Hollywood, you see a lot of these really successful, powerful people way dressed down, right? And that's sort of their power move, which is I can go out to this,
steak restaurant, this 4-star restaurant in jeans and a tee and cut off tee, whatever, because I'm a studio head or I'm a so-and-so head or I'm whoever, right? And that's sort of a power move. And I kind of get that. I don't like it, but I kind of get it, which is like, I don't fuck with me. I just do what I want, kind of thing, celebrity kind of thing. But if you're not that, if you're not running a studio and you're not Leo DiCaprio, try to dress appropriately for the occasion, right? If you're not a star athlete or a star whatever, it's not that much work. And I think a lot of these man rules, people look at them and think like, oh, it's a lot, 99 man rules. I grew up with all of them. And these are like not things we have to learn. We grew up with them. So they're just innate. And I'm sure you as a woman grew up with rules for women too. And so when you look at like how women should act, you just do them all naturally. So these are sort of things that like I notice younger men are not doing, but none of them are actually work. None of them take work. Putting on, a decent shirt and a pair of slacks doesn't take a lot of work. It's just a conscious decision to spend those 3 minutes dressing like that. In fact, I think men wasting time is bad. That's one of the man rules against. I say shower, shave, and shit. Then have 10 minutes in the bathroom every day. That's it, right? No, there's no other reason to be in the bathroom. And so a lot of men are taking time now to groom themselves and do cosmetics and manscaping. And, women have different opinions on that type of stuff. And maybe if your lady likes that, whatever, but like, I see all these devices and commercials on TV for intimate grooming and other things like that. I'm like, I don't know. Like, is that really where you're focusing your energy? I mean, again, this is a book for masculinity. It applies to straight and gay men. But I know gay men may have different priorities, and the other men in relationships like to see different things. But in general, leave your pubes alone. Okay, like you don't need to be manscaping yourself. You're not a model. You're not being seen on TV. Just let yourself be natural and be manly, right? Anything. I suppose if you have an excessive bush that is the biggest bush in the world, take care of it, okay? But otherwise, just do the basics of grooming. You're not a woman. Men are not supposed to be pretty, right? Men can be handsome and attractive, but men are not supposed to be pretty. And so anytime you spend trying to make yourself look pretty is not time spent masculine. It's not masculine time. So I'm going to stick with that rule.
I agree with you on that. And I also agree with the fact that people should dress appropriately in public. And there was someone in the comments here, I believe it was Michael. Michael, did you just say something a few minutes ago, which I cannot bring up? Oh, okay. Now I just screwed up my screen. I'm on a different, oh boy. Okay, well, now I can't see anything. So that's fine. Anyway, he was saying that people should put more effort into their appearances, because if you go outside, even though you're not in a suit, but if you're taking someone out to dinner, you should be in a nice outfit, because then it shows that you care about your appearance. And I feel as though, okay, yeah, studio head maybe could get away with that, but I wouldn't want to sit there doing business with someone who is that looks like a homeless person. And there are so many younger people these days that look like homeless people. In fact, there was a kid in his 20s running after his dad's car after his dad dropped him off at his expensive apartment, running after him. Hey, dad, can I have $20? It's like, dude, he just dropped you off like at a $3,000 apartment, or that's how much they go for in that building, and you're asking your father for money? Women don't want to see that, guys. Like, let me tell you, that is not something the ladies want to see. That's scary.
No, I mean, I think that they say dress for the job that you want, right? And if you're on a date, there's some job that you want there, right? And so, dress to, you don't need to be, if you have a fashion designer and you don't need to flip through GQ and get ideas. It's really pretty basic. So as a teenager, I worked in the Macy's men's department. It wasn't that hard. Men have a pair of pants, they have a shirt, and occasionally they have a jacket and a tie. There aren't that many options for men, right? It's not like women that you don't need closets full of stuff. You have 3 pairs of, I think in the book we mentioned 3 pairs of pants, 3 pairs of shoes, 3 shirts, whatever it is. It's a very simple kit, as we'll say. Like, you shouldn't be spending time like pulling things up and looking, how do I look and things like that. You only have a few options, and that's all you need. That's all a man needs, to be appropriate, not to be impressive. That's for the ladies, and against whatever models or something like that, But in the end, that's not gonna impress the ladies, I don't think, trying too hard to look like you're a super fashion person, because you're probably not in the first place. And second of all, it looks like you're sort of just into yourself a lot. So I think appropriate is the right word. Like just appropriate. Dress like your dad would have. You know, it's not that hard. Well, not your dad, but not my dad. But like just like how you just go see a movie from the 50s and dress like that, right? That's all. I mean, I always laugh because in the old days, guys wore suits for like to work. You know, they would be welders and they'd be like in a suit, and they'd be like or up construction crews on the 30th floor of a building, like hammering stuff in. They're like in a vest and a jacket and a tie. I'm like, oh my god, like that's a bit too much these days. But if you're going out, if you're entertaining, all this stuff, yeah, I mean, that makes a lot of sense. And again, none of this stuff is hard. This is all easy. It just doesn't come naturally. It doesn't come naturally to younger men because I just think they weren't raised that way. They're not seeing it in media any longer. It's not expected. I was thinking now in my mind about when Zelensky came to see Trump, in the Oval Office, and he's like, he can't put, and it really bothered a guy like Trump. He's 80. Really bothered a guy like Trump. Because that's just not how you conduct serious business. You put on a coat, you put on a tie. You're meeting the president of the United States in the White House. Okay, you should know this, right? Maybe not to Houston's. You don't need to wear the coat and tie, just something else. But like, dress appropriately. Don't let your outfit be the topic of conversation because you just dressed too poorly or you dressed too crazy. You saw something in GQ and you're trying to model yourself. Don't do that. That's bound to be a failure. So yeah, I think it's, again, all these things are so easy, and we grew up with this, and so our dads taught us at 6, right? They taught us how to put on a tie at 6 or whatever. And at school, you had to, like, for certain events, you had to dress up and things and all that stuff's gone now, right? So these kids grow up, all these, forever. They have other nice qualities about them, but they've lost a lot of masculinity. And there's other reasons if you want to talk about it, which is just sort of like the feminization of society that's come about, which is good and bad, right? So the good side is women have much more opportunity to rise in power. They run things. Women have all these opportunities schools and media and marketing, all this stuff. I look at all this stuff from like 20 years ago to now, all the magazines, all this stuff, it's all run by women now. And when I was in my 20s, it was all run by men, right? Even the women's magazines were run by men. But now everything in media, marketing, certainly academia, a lot more in politics is run. The rule makers are now women, and that's great because that's presented opportunities for women to do that. But it has shifted our culture quite a bit. And if we just look at schools, for instance, I just put my kids the last few years through the school system, it's changed completely for boys. I mean, it's changed. I thought about this when they got rid of dodgeball. They got rid of dodgeball like a few years ago. Yeah, because it was too violent. They said it was too violent. And every guy watching those dodgeball is exactly how you learn how to be a man, right? A young man, which is you throw things at someone's head, they throw at your head. You learn not to cry when you get hit. You learn to hit the other person. You learn to be a good sport afterwards and shake hands after beating each other up. And contact sports, all that stuff, it's all gone, right? It's all gone from schools. Now you have the trophies and the sports. There's sports at schools, like no PE, no contact sports, no nothing like that. All participation trophies, all these other things, which are very feminine, and they nurture in a way. I get the desire of women behind that, which is like we want everyone to feel included. We want everyone to feel like a winner. We don't want to feel anyone to be bullied. And bullying can get toxic and dangerous at some point, at some extremes. But in general, it's sort of how boys learn to be men, right? They bully each other, they shove each other, they push each other, they throw things at each other. They get in fights sometimes. They play sports where they knock each other around. They lose. They come in second place or third place and don't get the trophy, and the guy who beat them gets it. And these are all like sort of masculine learning experiences that are completely gone from schools now, completely gone. Now, I live in Los Angeles, so I will say that. So I'm a little warped in terms of like, when I say the schools, I mean Los Angeles, which is an extremely progressive area.
Oh, wait, Santa Monica?
Around the country, certainly all the big cities, yeah.
Santa Monica, Palisades, like what area of LA? Because Santa Monica is so far progressive, it's gone. And I mean, the type of stuff that they in the school, they have done in the schools here, it's just, I don't know what's going on. Like, I feel so bad for the next generation.
It's really bad. Again, I focus on that sort of masculinity. And by the way, now boys who are express themselves physically, they give them ADHD diagnoses, and they drug them. They give them, the kids, like 1 out of 7 boys under 14 in the country at schools are now being given drugs for ADHD or ADD, Ritalin, those type, all the other ones. So what happens when boys start acting up in school when they're 7, 8, 9 and it's very natural for boys. I remember when I took my son to look at a kindergarten in one of the schools here in Los Angeles, the kids were 5 or 6, and the teacher was doing a little story time, and all the girls were sitting listening attentively to the teacher. Wonderful story. And all the boys were looking out the window, dying for the bell to ring so they could go outside and run around, right? That's all the boys want to do. They wanted to go out and get out of this prison and go run around in circles and smash their head into things, right? That's all the boys wanted. And you've now made it so you've taken that away. You've called that bad, and you've sometimes in some extreme cases you drug kids, the boys, to stop, so they can focus more. And again, I'm not a doctor. There are some kids who need sort of therapy or medication on extreme ends to learn. And we had kids we didn't have the drugs when I was growing up, so we had kids who were just so hyper, they were like couldn't learn anything. Right? There was one kid in every class or whatever. This is an extreme, but now it's 1 out of 7. It's 15% of boys are being on this medication, and the Adderall later on, Ritalin and Adderall. And it's like we're punishing boys for being boys, and we're telling them it's their boy feelings and masculine feelings and wanting to compete, wanting to win, wanting to earn, wanting to have merit, wanting to knock somebody over, another boy over, no girls, another boy over is toxic, right? And we train, and the teachers and the schools literally punish them and train them out of it. And their parents reinforce it at home, either because they agree with it or because they don't want to get in trouble at school. And now they're coming out of school, they're in high school, and they come out of school and they have become very feminized, sort of feminine, strong boys that don't know where their place is. There's no like, these rules didn't exist for them. These man rules didn't exist for them. And now they're coming out and they're just, I don't dislike these people. I kind of feel sorry for them.
Yeah.
Because, it's like if you were raised in an abusive home, you would have issues. If you're raised in, whatever extreme home, you would have issues. And this is sort of an extreme thing that we're going through socially. So now we have tens of millions of young men who just never were trained to be men. And so it's not their fault. It's just sort of the way it is. And it's had a profound effect on, you can look at anything from, like, I was looking at the birth, Elon always puts out the birth rate chart.
His birth rate chart.
He has a birth rate, like how the birth rates are so down in Western countries, right? And we're all going to eventually go away because we're not repopulating, and people just aren't having babies anymore. And part of it, I think, is this relationship dynamic and this sort of male-female gender dynamic, and what you're supposed to be, as a man growing up, which is a father, have a family, all these other things, and it's on the women's side as well. But like these roles have so changed dramatically that the basics of life are sort of taking a huge hit, right? And then you have anxiety, depression, lost guys, they're not working, they're not going to college anymore. They just don't know, again, this is not everybody, but the waves are happening. You can see the numbers. Women are going to school up here and men are go down here now in college. There's a huge differential where it used to be the opposite, but it was the opposite because women were kept from that opportunity. Men still have that opportunity. They're not choosing it because they don't really know what they want to do with their lives anymore, because they have all the options, but they don't, that having all the options is not the best thing in life, right? Sometimes they just put you on the couch watching cartoons. So,
Doing TikTok videos.
Being told like, here are 3 things you can do with your life, maybe better than here are 3,000 things you can do, because then you just end up doing nothing, right?
Yeah, and it's very scary. You see kids that are young men that are military age to enlist in the army, and they're out there doing these ridiculous, retarded TikTok videos. Then I'm in the doctor's office today. This was actually in Santa Monica, just waiting for my allergy shot. And I see this guy there, and something seemed off with him. Then you see the woman he's with. This was great. Typical fourth wave feminist. She had the Santa Monica hair. I call it the progressive hair. It was wild and unkempt. She looked very progressive, no makeup, and was wearing the most inappropriate things for who she was. I know this sounds bitchy, but he opened his mouth to say something, to ask her about the shot. Why are you still talking about this? Why do we have to talk about this in here? This is just not good. I can't have this. This is triggering me. Why are we doing this? And she was raising her voice So one of the girls behind the desk had to tell her to take it down, but the guy's voice kind of went like this. Well, I don't. So maybe she was giving him like, I don't know, estrogen, or maybe he was just so scared of her. I mean, she was really wearing the pants.
Yeah, well, men are actually, I mean, this is, I laugh about a lot of stuff. It's kind of funny to me, some of the stuff, but men are actually losing testosterone, right? Men are actually losing testosterone rates among the men are dropping. Yeah. And it's measured not only in testosterone, they test testosterone levels. So men are less testosterone heavy, less fertile than they used to be in the last 40, 50 years, but they've also lost hand strength. And hand strength is how you measure, it's a very basic measurement of general strength in your body, like your hand grip, how strong you can grip something. It's sort of a quickie way of evaluating someone's strength in general. And so they do it with like thousands of people. They test them every year on the hand strength. So you test 25-year-olds every year for their hand strength, take 1,000, test them. And over the years, the strength has gone down, like really noticeably in the last 40 or 50 years. As testosterone is dropping, the strength is dropping. It goes to bone density, it goes to fertility, it goes to muscle mass, all these other things. And it's going to behavior as well. It's actually a physical occurrence. It's happening now, depending who you talk to. If you talk to RFK Jr., he says it's because of pesticides and chemicals and pollutants and stuff like that. And if you talk to, whatever social conservatives, they say it's because people have lost their path and other things like that. It's probably a combination of a lot of things, but it is definitely happening. 100%. Men are becoming literally emasculated, in addition to socially emasculated. And so it's possible that women are marrying, I'm talking about straight men now, heterosexual men, that women are marrying heterosexual men who are more, just that the base maybe is just more feminine than it used to be in previous generations. It may just be there's not a lot of masculine men to pick from any longer. And so it may not even be a choice for women. They may be looking, and 9 out of 10 guys they like are kind of emasculated. So, there is a pool. At some point, there's a pool, and there's only so many men, and same with women, there's only so many women. And so you want to find a mate and a partner. And at some point, you got to choose from who you got to choose from. So, and then you can add the online stuff, the apps. You mentioned the apps earlier. In the book, I mentioned online dating is surrender. It makes no sense to me whatsoever. It's so anti building a strong relationship or even really understanding who you're actually dating or seeing, that you have to meet. You have to, even in the old days, we spoke on the phone for hours, I guess, which ironically I put in the book. Men don't chat on the phone. So that was really with other men. That was really with other men. Back in the day, if your girlfriend liked to talk on the phone, you talked on the phone a lot. That's just how it was, especially if you're long distance. But you got to know something. You really got to know somebody. Then in person, of course, the most. But this online dating thing is like, I don't understand how people look for mates. I mean, one night mates maybe, but I don't know how they look for life mates online dating. It just seems like I see all the ads. I know all this. eHarmony uses one thing, and these other guys use one thing, and it just seems such a poor idea for building human relationships. That I'm always surprised. There's always the case of people who met online, dating app, and they have a wonderful marriage, and they're very happy. Of course, it just seems like everybody hates it. It seems like everybody I talk to who's on online dating hates it. Like it doesn't work for them. It's depressing. It's like, and I'm like, get out and meet people. This is like, I know we're a digital online world now. I was in there sort of in their homes, stuff like that, but there's still all these opportunities to meet the opposite sex out of your living room, not in your living room or your bedroom. I mean, go out and meet people. And a lot of that's, again, in defense of younger people, like COVID, other things like that, work from home, all these other things that have occurred that, and certainly social media and digital online have caused people to be more insular, more at home, more reclusive. So there aren't as many people out as there in other places doing hiking or whatever they used to do, or where they used to meet at the library or at the gym. Even a lot less people at the gym than there used to be. So I've been going to the gym for decades, and there's a lot less people than there used to be because people are working at home. They got all their equipment during COVID, and they're working at home and things like that. So it is a tougher environment I can see for younger people to meet the opposite sex. But it's still by far the best way. I mean, this the online app, the dating apps, the thing, and I don't understand that at all. Like it's so dehumanizing, it's such a horrible way to start a relationship.
It really is, truly.
Yeah. I mean, it's no offense to people who do it, but a fake photo, probably a fake profile. People like, every date forever. People, you've been on dates, on your first date, everyone lies a little bit, right? Everyone like tries to present their best self. You don't talk about, you probably don't bring up your allergy shots like the minute you meet somebody. What do you know about me? I get allergy shots. I judge other women. You talk about all your amazing, great stuff, right? And that's what you do. You're selling yourself a little bit, right? You look good. You talk. You want. But online dating is like a forever first date where you're just continuing that process, like forever. You never get past that to the real. You never seem to get past that to the real stage, and then you build these sort of fake relationships, and then you finally meet or you finally get closer, or whatever else, and you realize all these things that you would have known if you've just been normally dating somebody for like 3 or 4 months. So online dating is definitely surrender. I would really highly advise for the 1 in 20 guys who is successful for, it's going to be unsuccessful for the other 19. And just get out there, meet women through work, through activities, through community, through charity events, through whatever else you can do. Go to the events where you want to meet the kind of women who will be at those events, right? That's what I tell guys, and that's the best way to meet the opposite sex. They get to see you in person, see you're real, and all the other stuff.
My friend met his girlfriend at the Museum of Death in Hollywood.
The Scientology.
Yeah, near there, right near there. The Museum of Death was right down the street. Same kind of premise, same kind of weirdo. Yeah. They ended up meeting there. I don't think dating apps are great because people you just sit there and you do this. And I was at the Chart House a while ago in Marina del Rey while it was there. And there's this fairly good-looking guy, Asian kid with this cute girl. And she was just sitting there on her phone the whole time. Then you see her get up. And you could tell he's really making the effort. He was dressed up appropriately. It's a nice restaurant. Obviously, he's paying. She goes to the bathroom for 20 minutes. So she didn't drown in the toilet. She comes back out. Oh, my Uber outside. I have to go now. So she had to get in her Uber. So I had to go meet Fakisaki, whatever she was doing. So she just left him there. And I felt bad because the food arrived, right?
Yeah,
and your date's gone. And that's the other problem. Like the distractions of it,
Did you go over and offer to take the meal?
No, actually, he took it to go. But I'll tell you this about putting your best foot forward. So the A game, guys, is for you. It's not for us as much. Because I remember once on a first date, I almost got into a fight with some 6 foot something guy, and I was ready to go. I was tying my hair back and everything. I was going. Nothing happened though because the owner of the bar threw him out. So I mean,
well, I feel like I want to say, Jasmine, I think that you're not. I'm going to go ahead and say you're not the typical woman. So I think that. So a lot of things are saying, I don't do that. I'm like, well, but I think I'm sure many guys would love to date you, but you're not the typical dating experience probably. And so like first date, I think like you try to like impress the other person and you talk about just positive things and look your best and sort of pay attention to the other person saying, and when they tell a boring story, you're like, oh my God, whatever, like you put an effort into it. Yeah. And my dad married my mom because they went out. My dad was dead broke, and my mom knew it when they were early 20s. This is way back when, and she'd always order like the little salad, the little dinner salad when they went to, because she knew that he was dead broke, but she never said anything. But it was like, I always thought that was so sweet. Like she just knew, like she wanted to go on dates with him. She wanted him to pay. She wanted to do all stuff, but she knew that he was a graduate student. He had 10 cents to his name, right? And so she was very kind like that and doing things like that. And I think when you're interested in a guy or vice versa, you do those kind of little things. You do niceties you may not do for somebody to do it well. But I feel like now every young woman is sort of like, and I'm veering off my man rule saying, I feel like every young woman is sort of like on a TikTok, feels like they're on a TikTok video where they're like, every date feels like they're filming themselves. They may not be, they may be, but they're like doing that persona of the TikTok girl on date who films herself about my horrible first dates. And this is how it went down. They kind of, mime that kind of thing. And it's just sort of like, I mean, there's bad stuff. Again, I don't understand women very well. I only understand the men's side, but there's problems. There's interconnection problems on both sides for sure. And it's I don't know how people date and how people date and meet like in their 20s these days. It just seems so, everyone's on TikTok crying in their car and like, after work or after a date or after whatever. It just seems so much emotional stress. And like, and by the way, back in the day, people weren't having nearly as much sex as they're having now. So it's not like the sex isn't happening. It's just like people back then seemed happier and they weren't getting laid as often, but they just seemed emotionally more like they go on a date and they didn't, nothing happened at the end of the date, but they seemed happier. Like they were just like, I went on a great date and they were just happier about it. And now it just seems very commerce, and sort of like judgy, and I'll give you 10 minutes and all this stuff. And like the girl you mentioned at the chart house probably like gave him like 5 minutes and then she gave up on him, right? Then she started checking her phone and then she's tuned out. That's a tough interview, right? That's like, you're missing, if you do job interviews and you hire people, you only give them 5 minutes, you're going to miss a lot of good people, right? If you prejudge them and all this stuff like that, other than blue hair, I don't do blue, I don't hire blue hair. But outside of that, like you got to give, dating takes a while. You got to go on, again, if he's a total jerk, yeah, whatever. But 2 or 3 dates, I mean, feel it out a little bit. See if what you got there, like you're not going on 30 dates tonight. You got time. All you do is going back to watch Netflix or go on TikTok and tell people about how bad your date was. It was, if you remember the Aziz Ansari story when he got canceled, and the woman he had a date with just went back and started typing out how sort of gross he was, or how he wasn't gross, but how forward he was on the dates sexually and things like that. And like kind of destroyed him. And he's just a lost kind of nerdy guy who didn't really know what he was doing. He's certainly not aggressive. I'm thinking like, what are we in this, what is happening in this culture that we're doing stuff like that? You're destroying a man essentially for something that he just is kind of feeling his way around, literally feeling his way around gently, and you're destroying him over it. And I think men get that a lot and see things like that. That reinforces all the stuff they learn in school, right? All this toxic masculinity stuff. And now the girl they're dating is like online writing about how they're toxically masculine and they're being punished and he's being canceled and losing shows. And I think men see this 100 times, 1,000 times. They're like, I just, I'm not going to I don't want to be part of this, right?
Yeah, and there's also the other part, which is Hellstrom just brought this up. A lot of these women live their lives based upon the number of likes that they get on their posts. So it's this false sense of validation on the internet. Now, which brings me to the next point. We're talking about TikTok videos, right? You get these girls that see, oh my God, it's a lifestyle. I want lifestyle. I want the lifestyle. Okay, so do you want the lifestyle for yourself or to have it to post and live your life on the internet? Because 90% of the times those photos are fake. I don't know if they're AI or some people rent like a private jet and like the whole private island thing for like 10 grand for the day. Yeah. And I just feel as though it's false sense of what's important in life. Then, you cover this a lot in here about gifts. And one thing you never offer a woman as a gift, even if you're stumped at the last minute, never offer her sex from yourself as a birthday gift because it just doesn't work. It's not that way. Yeah. But, it seems
it's a nice idea. It's a nice idea. So
no, it's not.
if we lived in a world like that, that'd be a nice idea. But we don't live in that world. And I always tell every year on Valentine's on X or wherever else, I remind men not to buy lingerie for their overly sexy things for their girlfriend or wife, because it's basically that. It's basically that what you're saying. But also, it's like it's a minefield. It's just a minefield that you don't need to enter. She's not going to like it. She's going to think you're being suggestive. You want something from it. It doesn't look good in it. It brings up all these issues. And every year, men go to Victoria's Secret and buy this lingerie. And I'm thinking, like, just stop, right? There's so many other things. It's a huge minefield to buy a woman anything like that. Just clothing in general, obviously. Buying women stuff like that. Women want to take care of that themselves. But yeah, in terms of what you said about that social media and the perfect life, it's really bad. I mean, it's really bad. And I'm not an expert on that subject like some people are. But it's hurting men, but it's really hurting women. I mean, it's really hurting young women. I mean, the suicide rates, the depression rates, the anxiety, all this stuff, and a lot of it is attributed to like that sort of like, I imagine, again, not a girl, but I imagine growing up as a teenage girl, it's hard enough, right? It's hard enough with just the girls at school, and the sisters and brothers and the mom and dad and the whatever. And now you have the whole world, judging you, and feeling like you need to be judged by the whole world. And a lot of it's negative, or it's fake positive. And like, I cannot imagine carrying that load, sort of like the burden of like, being self-conscious already as a teenage girl, and boys too. And then having these, all these comments from strangers about you, or feeling like the girls are doing better videos than you. And like you said, the filters, I tried filters once, but now this is what you get. I like not doing that. But it's like, I can't imagine. I mean, it's tough. I mean, this is a Man Rules book, but I can't imagine for young women what it's like growing up in this day and age, and like just that superficial pressure at the very wrong time in your life, just when you don't need it, is overwhelming, right? And you can't almost, you say you turn the phone off, turn it off. It's really hard to turn it off. It's part of all their lives. I have teenagers. It's part of all their lives. So it's like, turn it off is not as easy as it sounds. And yeah, parents should be looking and watching this stuff, but that's also not as easy as it sounds. It's ubiquitous, right? It's everywhere. It's at your friend's house. It's at the Starbucks. It's everywhere. You can't get away from the digital online, and it's addictive, and it's intentionally addictive, and it's really, really damaging a lot of people. So that's my rant on social media. It's like, men. I think men should have interest in the topics that are discussed on there, but I don't need to see men either. We talked earlier about the topless men. So when the light goes down in my back, you'll see like guys jogging by topless. And I always think, like, what is the advantage of jogging topless? There's no advantage to this. You're not competing for a world record, right? In fact, it's worse for the sun and the sweat to not have a shirt on. So you're just jogging by topless. And again, it's not the Olympics, right? You're just going for your after work job. You can put a shirt on, dude. Just put a shirt on. It's not that hard. I don't need to see your body. Nobody wants to see your body. The women aren't ogling you. It's not working. Just, put a shirt on, dude. It's like, it's peacocking, right? It's preening. And in the book somewhere, I don't know the page, but it's very distinctive about men are not supposed to be pretty. They're not supposed to peacock. You don't need to show off your looks. If you're handsome, that's great. You're good looking, that's great. You don't need to peacock yourself and spread your feathers out and start dancing around and saying, look at, wonder of me, wonder of me. I can't speak for women. I assume it's largely a turn off. But to other men, it's certainly a signal that, like, you're not coming in my foxhole, dude. That's just not, I don't need that. I need a worker and a reliable guy and a buddy. I don't need a guy who's in love with him. I don't need a guy who's in love with himself.
Well, if you're a gigolo, I could assume that would be the right way to go jogging around town. And, you get the guys that are good looking that are topless, but then that's more of a reason not to even bother with them. It's like, look at me. I'm just going to some of the comments on here. And by the way, what you told me earlier, the story about a coworker wearing chapstick on a necklace. I have my own thoughts about that. So many people are so happy nowadays, yes, with the Me Too. Apps are a great way to get an STD. I cannot agree with you more. There are limits to how far you go when asking out a woman. That's true. I don't know if there's an unusual way or if there's something really bad that's happened before to you, Michael, when this happened. If you did something unusual, like did you throw a bottle into someone's window with a note inside asking her out? You got to know when to step back. So it's just, here it is. A lot of my friends are women and have been a big help and confident. Yeah, you have to be confident. David Hogg is a toxic femme female. I had a girl lick my lips before she kissed me. Okay, well, that's very, that's nice of her. Anyway, moving right along. Did you ever give someone a gift and then they gave it back to you? Because it seems like you have this whole chapter on gifts, and it seems like you're a good gift giver.
Well, I think that, like, in terms of gifts, I think, especially to talk about men to men, first of all, I just read this, I was going through the book again. One of my pet peeves is adult men who have birthday parties for themselves.
Yeah,
it's got to stop. I mean, if you're past, it's funny because boys, when they turn like 12 or 13, they don't want birthday parties anymore. They're like, I'm too old for this birthday. And at some point, like at 25 or 30, they're like, yeah, I want to have birthday parties again. I'm like, no, it's like, I mentioned Halloween in here too, dressing up for Halloween. I know it's fun, adults like it, but like men should not be dressing up in costumes past childhood age, right? There's like, again, it's not to be not fun, have fun, go out, whatever, have a great time. but like, it's a kid's holiday, right? It's for kids. Birthday parties are for kids, and Halloween is dress up in costumes. You don't need to dress up like a soldier or whatever, a cowboy. You had your chance, you had your years, you got trick or treat. Now it's over. Now it's for the kids, right? And so these are kind of a few of the sort of remasculating ideas. But in terms of gifts, I think you have to put thought into them, right? And I think, you mentioned the sex thing or the lingerie thing I mentioned like that is really put a little, again, my view speaking as a man about what women think, which I don't know, is that women want to see the effort, right? They want to see that you've listened to them and you've heard and you've come up with an idea, right or wrong. And probably always, for some women, it'll always be wrong. Some women will always be right, whatever. But it's that sort of A for effort type of thing, right? And I don't mean like effort, like you got to do a big song and dance. But I mean, you've picked up on something that she's been mentioning. And women, by the way, mention these things. So they're not, generally, in my experience, women will mention these things. They'll drop clues as it gets closer to Christmas or birthdays or things like that. Or just listen, like you'll hear what exactly you're supposed to get. But if you're not sure, just kind of think about it and then go for that as opposed to something that's very typical or stereotypical, or anything that would involve you don't do or benefit to you, like you mentioned. It really is about giving. And women take these things much more seriously than men do. Men, again, no birthday parties, but men shouldn't really care about gifts they receive. It's not like that's a more of a girlish, feminine type thing, which is being, men want to feel appreciated, but not necessarily with material things. Because if you're an independent man and you're a provider and you take care of yourself and things like that, you don't really necessarily want someone having to buy you things like you're a child. Like, it's more childish, really. And again, these are all rules. If you get some gift and it's nice, it's whatever. But like, men shouldn't be seeking gifts. Shouldn't have parties where they tell people to bring gifts. It's just so very embarrassing. But again, for gifts, I think now we have a lot more occasions than we used to have. I'll say that for gifts. So there's a lot of new holidays that didn't exist before. And so sometimes for guys and men, I speak to men a lot, and the men who are married, like, okay, I got birthday, I got Christmas, I got anniversary, I got Valentine's, I got Mother's Day, I got, there could be 8 or 9 things a year where you're having to think about a gift. And, if you're together for 10 years, that's 90 gifts you got to come up with. And so, and especially if the woman doesn't have a specific hobby or really interest or something she's really, really intent on, where you can really focus on that for gifts, men are only so creative. So I think just personalized stuff this is something I learned from my mom, is she would just say, don't get me gifts, make something for me as a boy, right? I want something that you've made. It could be a note. It could be as simple as a note. It could be whatever, when you're younger, the clay, whatever, or things like that, a little watercolor. But I want something that you made, right? And that's what's special to me. And I assume a little bit differently for a girlfriend than a mom, but they want to have that sort of like, he really thought about this. He put some idea into this, and he thinks about me specifically, not birthday, go to ChatGPT or Amazon. I've done this before. Every guy's done this. Maybe women don't know, but guys go to Amazon and say good gifts for girlfriends, and Amazon will spit out a list of ideas. So, sometimes you get caught a little short-handed and you're just thinking like, what do I get? So I'm sure now they're just using ChatGPT or Grok for that too. Like, what's a good gift it's tomorrow. What's a good gift for my girlfriend? But I think ahead, make something important of it. There are a lot of occasions, but whatever you give comes back to you twice as much. And so I think being selfless is part of that masculinity, is being a caretaker and being a boyfriend or husband, and really caring for that person and not thinking about what you're getting back. You're here to provide and care for other people. And that's sort of the thing about masculinity that people don't really understand. This idea of toxic masculinity is some caricature of gym bros pushing people around, grabbing women by their hair, beating their way around with clubs and stuff like this, and being really misogynist and all that stuff. That has nothing to do with masculinity, right? Masculinity and rules for men is about being independent and taking care of others, taking care of your lady, your wife, your girlfriend, and your kids, and your family, your community. It's about being able to take care of yourself so you can take care of others. and sort of that old sort of knight, if for lack of a better idea, like the Knights of the Round Table kind of gallant thing, you're serving a purpose, right? If you're fighting, it's for a purpose. If you're doing this, it's for a purpose. You're serving some larger purpose, and you're preparing yourself for that. It's not about being selfish at all. It's about preparing yourself to help other people. And that's really what masculinity is. And that's sort of what the gender role, again, gender role is so confusing these days. That's sort of what the biological gender role is for men, is to be that sort of caretaker. It doesn't mean women can't care for themselves. It doesn't mean men have to be, smothering them and in charge all the time. Definitely not abusive or toxic in any way. It really is about preparing yourself to take care of other people. And you can't do that till you take care of yourself, obviously. So it's not selfish that you're trying to take care of yourself in these ways. It allows you then to take care of other people. If you can't take care of yourself, you cannot take care of other people. That's just a basic rule. So all these rules, as funny as they are sometimes, is really about that. And if I can bring up the one that pisses people off the most, since I'm sure people are initially pissed off, that goes to video games as well. I am not anti-gamer. I play video games. When I was a kid, I played a little bit as an older person just because friends had it. But definitely moderation on that. Like, I don't mind. Have your hobbies, whatever you want. But like the guys who are older and like gaming all the time, it is like I don't know. That's just not a great thing. That is not just self-indulgent, but it's like again, I mean, I got a lot of hate for this because a lot of guys love this, but it's kind of weird, right? It's just kind of weird. I mean, it's not weird that you enjoy it. And another side note, another topic in here is we call it masturbate like a Spartan. It is essentially, video game is essentially masturbation, right? So in moderation, right? You don't want to be masturbating all the time. You don't want to be, self-indulge. You don't want to be self-indulging all the time. Yes, treat yourself nicely, do what you need to do, but it shouldn't be your main hobby. I'm talking now video gaming or masturbation. It should not be your primary activity outside of the stuff you have to do. So when you get free time, that shouldn't be your first impulse. We all have biological needs, and even video gaming provides pleasure to people if they want to do that instead of watching a movie or, whatever else they're doing, whatever. But like, who I'm talking about. And it is partially addictive, but also it is that very self-indulgent type of thing that is really just for yourself. It doesn't, and again, there's no reason not to do some things for yourself every day, but if you're spending hours a day taking care of yourself, pleasuring yourself, that's too much time. And that's time you're not giving pleasure to other people.
Yeah, or meeting people. But the whole video game thing, that's got to be so annoying. I remember years ago when AOL chat came out, and I had a boyfriend that was always on chat, and the whole thing was, he was engaging in that so much. And when you try to get his attention, he's so engaged with these other conversations. And I had to remind him, those people will always be there. They're not going anywhere. They'll be there in the morning when you sign on. They'll be there tomorrow evening. Or how about this? Pick up your phone and ring them. Yeah. I feel like that was the decline of human communication, where these whatever.
Yeah, you have so much you can do from your room, right? Insular, like you can literally be create a prison for yourself and stay in there. And I'm guilty of this too, like a lot of people. I get Amazon delivery all the time and groceries and stuff like that. Here in LA, like everything was shut down during COVID. And it was a nightmare to go to the store. And everyone screamed at you about the mask, and like you got to wait in line. And then there was like 3 people at a time. And so I just started using Amazon for delivery. I loved going to the grocery store actually before. I loved going out. I didn't shop very much, but groceries, I love going to the store once a week. So I stopped doing that, and I realized I'm doing Amazon delivery now. It's very convenient, very easy, but you do miss that sort of just basic human interaction, even though you're not meeting people necessarily at the store, but you're saying hi to people. You're talking about avocados, or you're whatever else you're doing. Just really basic human conversation is gone. Like you're losing that, and it's not the same. It's not the same online. It's just your body reacts to it differently. Your brain reacts to it differently. You don't grow from that experience. You don't learn anything from that experience. So unless you're in prison, don't create this sort of prison don't create this prison for yourself. And again, I think I mentioned about liquor and drugs and other things in here too. Like everything in moderation, right? Just like, there's nothing wrong with having a drink, obviously. Go out, watch a game, and have a few beers. Obviously, love all that stuff. But if you're drinking all the time, or doing drugs all the time, or playing video games all the time, or masturbating all the time, or on chat all the time, and again, you only have so many hours in your day, so that's taking it from somewhere else, clearly. And it feels good. It's a momentary feel good. All those things are momentary feel goods, but they don't really. There's no long term benefit from that. In fact, you probably get depressed and sort of anxious, and all this stuff from that. Because this digital stuff moves so fast. It moves so like you mentioned the boyfriend where he was dating was like checking the chat all the time. It creates anxiety in your head, right? You're not in the moment. You're just like, your brain's on a swivel, and it generates all this nervousness for no reason. Like you're nervous, you don't even know why. And so I think that's very. I would as a non-doctor, I would say that seems very unhealthy.
It is. It's a whole thing with almost like you're seeking validation from people that maybe you know and you don't know that you just met on this AOL chat, which is just kind of ridiculous. I was never into all those things.
Yeah, well, I mean, look, it's easy, it's addictive, it's designed to be addictive. We know now, like Facebook and all these other places, actually have algorithms that are intentionally designed to be addictive, especially for younger people. So there's a lot. It's an uphill battle to fight it, for sure. And I think learning to do anything in moderation is really the most important thing. I mean, cutting yourself off and stuff, just not a great idea necessarily, but like just learning to focus on moderation and doing things for a little bit, or having a little bit of this and enjoying it, and then moving on to something else. So, I think that's the basics of a lot of this stuff. And then, just acting like men. I think men will feel better when they act like men.
Yes.
And everything's working. All the stuff we talked about is working against your society, right? It's working against men, but it's not stopping you, right? It's not stopping you. It's a slightly higher mountain to climb. It's a steeper hill to climb, but it's not unclimbable. I mean, this is all 99 rules in here. 15 minutes more a day. I don't know, like combined, like when they become habits. A lot of them are time savers, but most of them are time savers, by the way. And they'll save you a lot of trouble. And by the way, having all these failed relationships or all these troubling relationships or all these stuff, that takes a lot of time. I talked to a guy from overseas today. They're doing arranged marriages, and I always felt like, growing up, I thought, God, that's so backwards and so third world, arranged marriage and all that. And the longer I live and I see like how people do, it's like not a horrible idea. I mean, I don't mean like where you're forced into like marry some old fat guy. I mean, like families together, they have kids of about roughly the same age, and they start thinking about who would get along with who. And I'm talking about like modern age. And you're like, Steve would love Mary, and Mary would love Steve, and let's have them start meeting each other. The parents, and again, I don't want that as any sort of rule here, but like, I feel like that's a more effective chance of long-term success than Tinder, right?
Well, yeah, no, I agree. I guess it depends. What was your friend from India, or where was he from?
Yeah, it's from India. Yeah,
I had a feeling that's because they do that a lot there. And I've had friends that are from India that moved to London as well, and their parents would not let them date Englishmen.
Yeah,
they're not bad people, by the way. But then they'd end up getting married to some Indian guy. Sometimes it worked out, sometimes it did not work. Yeah. An ex of mine had somewhat of an arranged marriage. Some people listening to the show know the story already. His best friend set him up with a girl that he had met on Seeking Derangements. Okay. I call it Seeking Derangements for a reason.
Okay.
So mind you, your best friend already had sex with this ghetto trash, passed her along to you, and you don't know what you're getting on these websites. You are not getting the best people out there. You're not getting people who really want something better for themselves. You're getting lazy people. In any case, he ended up blowing out his brains last summer.
Yeah.
But she's out buying Escalades and everything, and has yet to throw him some kind of a memorial. So these are the kinds of people that you have to look forward to meeting on these apps. They're not the best.
That was very depressing. That was very depressing. I'm sure.
Oh, sorry.
No, I mean, it's like, hopefully no one does that. But I mean, it's like, I think it's like, I was joking a little bit about the arranged marriages, but like you have adults who've lived a little bit saying like, you know what, you two would actually be a good match. So I don't know if you had a grandma or someone who tried to set you up at times, just like that. But sometimes grandmas know, like grandmas who have like good instinct of like, that's a good guy, that's a bad guy. Like you would like this guy, you like that guy. So, you know, my grandma used to try to set me up when I was a teenager. I remember that stuff. Like, and lots of times it was totally wrong, but like, at least grandma's looking out for you, right? Grandma's like thinking like, what would be good for you generally sometimes, or it's a friend's grandson or whatever, granddaughter. But like you have like some advice from, you know, when you're on these dating apps, you're on your own. You're completely on your own, right? There's nobody else there to say like, even a friend to say like, no. Like there's no like social sort of family or unit around you to say like, that's a good idea, that's a bad idea. And so you're really on your own. And if you're less experienced with the stuff, either you're really cynical about it or you're just missing a lot of red flags. And one of the rules in here is about men miss red flags with women all the time. And
I know.
to really not go into a date or something looking for a red flag, but not ignoring very obvious red flags. Like you mentioned the date about the woman looking on her phone and stuff like that, or a woman screaming at you, you know, in the waiting room is like that. These are very obvious red flags. And men have a tendency to look past them because they just assume it's going to pass, or it's a nothing, or I like it for all these other reasons. But they tend to, or they really want a relationship, so they tend to ignore these red flags, and it's a really bad. Again, don't look for them. Don't try to find red flags. They're called red flags for a reason. You notice them when they're there. You know, like it's a red flag. It's a red flag. You notice it, but a lot of guys, I'm sure you know guys like this too, have ignored the red flags of these women they're dating. And they're obvious, and they're very obvious. And usually, as a female friend, you probably see them right away. But for some reason, for some reason, they have to go through this painful process of learning them either over a month or 10 years that they should have noticed on the third date, right? So men do that a lot. Men ignore red flags a lot.
Well, you guys don't listen to us. You guys do not listen to your best female friends. You think that we're jealous, but we're not jealous. We don't want you. We're just buddies. But guys think, oh, well, she's just jealous. She's just being overprotective. And yet, a really good friend of mine ended up in the hospital. He was suffering from cancer. The girl we warned him about since last year, who was not here legally from Colombia, which he had met at a strip club, right? Took all the money out of his wallet while he was going to the hospital and his credit card. $3,000 later.
You have horrible stories. You have horrible stories.
I have really good ones, and I have the dark ones because you know someone's got to someone has to remind you guys. It should be me that there's some really dark, creepy bitches out there.
Well, there's definitely sinister men and women, of course, and that that's beyond red flag. That you should definitely. I mean, that I think, especially if you're a sort of any sort of high profile person or you know of means or things like that, you're going to be targeted a lot more. If you're at a very nice nightclub. You know, those kind of, you read about the guys being robbed, you know, by going back to the hotels with the women being robbed. I mean, at some point, if you're sort of a women too, if you're of means and sort of wealthier in nice places, you will be targeted in some ways. You got to be much more careful of that. But even just for normal people, I think it's just looking at, you know, and that's why I think dating in person is so much more important than like the online stuff, because you pick up on that stuff. I was going to mention when you said that listen to your female friends. Now, women tend to, I'm guessing you're probably even higher than this, they probably hate 90% of other women that the guy's dating. So it's probably 9 out of 10 they say, no, you know, horrible. Whereas guys probably like 90% of the women that they're dating. So it's such a huge disconnect when their female friend says she's bad for you because they probably really like her. And so, and whatever, they're horny and they're whatever else is going on. And so they're just kind of going to ignore you because you've probably told them 10 times before this girl's bad for you. And so they're probably like, she just doesn't like any, and I know it's not jealousy, but like they're kind of like, she's just very judgmental. Women tend to be judgmental of other women. I don't know if you've noticed. And so they're going to notice things, but it may not be things that are necessarily red flags for the guy, but they're red flags for the woman because she just doesn't like the woman for women reasons. So, but the yelling, like in the waiting room, obviously a big problem.
It was so stressful. Like I hate needles already. And then I'm sitting there and I have to see Pippi Longstocking, like the fourth-rate version of Pippi Longstocking, yelling at this moppy-haired guy with a high-pitched voice. So it wasn't triggering for me, but it just wasn't like the best experience I like at that doctor's office. And he's a great doctor, by the way. I just hope I don't see these people again. But I do love your book. And real quick, I was reading about the prom. So my prom, we had our sociology teacher take us to Bauhaus. Or was it Suicidal Tendencies, one of those bands. He took us to Bauhaus once before.
Yeah.
Took us to Suicidal Tendencies.
Yep.
That's how we spent our prom.
Nice.
How did you spend your prom? I'm curious because you had a great little chapter about prom.
I went. So my advice to people. I didn't do this. I took to the prom a beautiful girl in high school who somehow agreed to go with me, and I had a horrible time. And so that was about. I mean, again, I think people and think prom's changed a little bit, but prom was always like in the old days. Prom was like most people didn't go to college. They didn't do it. Stuff. Like, prom was like the big, final like high school friend send off, right? So I think, and some guys and girls even married their prom dates, back in the day. Because they're 18 and the guys were in the military or whatever else. Prom was like sort of like it was almost a near wife experience. And so I always advise people now, whether it be my kids or other people, like go with someone you like a lot, go with a friend and treat it like a fun night out. Don't treat it as a romantic opportunity because it's going to suck. That's going to suck. Almost certainly. Whatever you see in the movies is not going to happen. I took a beautiful girl who was highly troubled, red flags everywhere, and I was so happy when she said yes. And she was a nightmare, and it was just like we were like 4 couples went together, at the bus and all this stuff like that. Everybody had a great time, and she was just a sourpuss, and she was unhappy, and all this other stuff just from the get-go. And so beautiful girl, I'll say that, but. You know what? It's just a bad prom. Is trying to make prom like a movie prom is a bad idea. Go with the friends you've had for 3 or 4 years. Get a car, bus. I'm not suggesting underage drinking, but have a few whatever, and just be with people you know well. So when you get a little screwed up and the night goes long, you're with people that you care about. You're with people, your friends, and not just with a prom first date is just a bad idea, I think. So. I didn't get to see Bauhaus or Suicidal Tendencies. I would have loved that because I love those bands. Very LA scene type thing.
New York when that happened. No, we were in New York City.
Oh, we're in New York. Okay, yeah. I love the scene. In LA, the punk scene in LA, like in the late 80s, is just tremendous. But I not in a tuxedo. I don't think I would have gone to Black Flag like in a tuxedo. But yeah, that's the thing. I mean, again, I would urge people to get the book. It's like, again, it's a funny book. I hope it's a funny book. It's humorous. It's not meant to. Every rule in there is serious, but it's not like a self-help book or get better book. In fact, women will love the book. Will recognize issues with their potential boyfriends. Dads will love the book just to laugh at how lame young guys are these days, and the young guys will read it and hopefully take some advice from it. But again, I want to tell like young millennials and Gen Z guys, half of this isn't your fault, right? Half of this is just the culture you've been raised in, and this is how you've been raised. My grandfather was raised in the generation where men didn't speak. My grandfather barely spoke, right? He didn't speak. Like men just didn't speak. They smoked cigarettes and didn't speak. That's a different generation. So you weren't expected to get a lot out of him, right? And now we're in a generation where men are sharing their problems and talking too much and checking in too much and all this other stuff. And that's just how the generation was raised, within their family, within the culture. So half of this ain't your fault. Half of it is definitely your fault. And you got to work on it because I see miserable outcomes, unhappy outcomes, anxiety outcomes for guys. I can't speak to girls, for guys who are on this sort of feminine, emasculated path. There's no good ending. There's no really happy ending to that story. Because I think you're living, we always talk, there's a lot of talk today about living your true self and living your true gender. But if you're a man, you're male, your true gender is man. And if you're not living that gender, then you have this disconnect. And I think it's going to always haunt you in some sort of instinctive, innate way that you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing. And so I hope people buy the book. I hope they enjoy it and pass it around. And one day I want to hear all your stories because your stories are incredible.
What, the Bauhaus story? I mean, it wasn't even like a date. It was a field trip that a sociology teacher took us on. He made us watch River's Edge like the year before for
oh my God, love that movie.
I know. An amazing soundtrack.
I grew up in Northern California, so that was a big story when I was growing up.
That's where it took place. And it's funny because I actually emailed the school to see if that teacher was still around. I wanted to just reach out to him to thank you very much for introducing me to all the cool things. But I think they were afraid I was trying to say he sexually he was sexually in a perp. I'm like, no. I just want to know his name so I can find him on Facebook to add him.
Yeah. I saw some of the comments you had from some of your viewers, and you know, there's always an excuse like the laws and the sexual harassment. So, believe me, that's all true. That's all real, but that's not a reason to stop, right? That's not a reason to just surrender. It's just a steeper hill to climb. That doesn't mean you can't climb it. And so, yeah, all the feminization and the toxic masculinity and the rules and the cancel culture, all the other stuff that exists, but it's not a killer. It's just an obstacle, right? And you can overcome it. It's not that hard to overcome, right? It just don't let that stop you from being a man, because men are under fire. Don't say, okay, literally some people men are just becoming women. They've surrendered. They've surrendered so much. They're like, it's so hard to be a man. It's so great to be a woman. I'll just be a woman, right? Like that's literally happening, like by the thousands, where men are just like completely surrendering and just saying like, I can't do that. I'll just become a woman. It's groovy. It's pretty groovy, man. You get all this great stuff, and you get to do all this stuff. And women, the future is women. So I'll just be a woman, fake woman. That's how bad it's gotten, right? Men are actually becoming depressed. Saying like, I'll just, instead of getting a job, instead of like working out, instead of going out to meet women, instead of doing all these other things, I'll just become a woman, right? And that will solve, and it doesn't solve any problems, but they believe that they're cutting off their junk. They're cutting off their junk, right? Literally, to try to get out of being a man. And it's just, that's how deep we've reached on this. But again, I'd say to most people, 99% of people out there, 99 rules, you can easily overcome this. It's not that big of an obstacle, right? It's just not. So go with it. Read the book. And I thank you so much for having me on. This was awesome. One day we will have a couple drinks, and I'm going to hear all the horror stories, because I know you guys.
Those crazy stories, yes.
I'll write a new book, or you'll write a new book, or I'll write a new book about it, because it's LA specifically. Growing up in LA is a New York's probably very similar. LA is similar, but like for people like they grow up there, they probably think it's so weird that a lot of these issues we discuss are probably they never had to experience when they were younger. But unfortunately, these cultures through LA, New York culture does then spread out through the entire country. It starts spreading out through the entire country. So eventually, as we see with like trans stuff, all this stuff, it eventually gets everywhere. So
unfortunately, the trans stuff is just taken over. Yep. And you know what that said real quick? Whenever I see a business, women owned, women this, it's like I stay away from it, because women are fucking crazy. But number two, I want to go to a business where stuff is run properly. I don't care if it's a woman or a man who runs it. That's it. Like, let me just know you have good service. Okay, great. That's great. I don't want to hear about if you have a vagina or a penis and what you do with your life. And that's just the way it is. I could be very blunt sometimes. I'm sorry. So thank you so much for joining us. And do not forget, guys, you've got to pick this book up. Man Rules. This is the best book ever.
Yeah, get on Amazon. Jeff Bezos takes most of the money, but he needs it. He definitely needs it. So
Lauren Sanchez's new face.
He got a $10 million wedding coming up, so he's got
really.
As they say, got to pay for it.
Yeah, and we're not invited. Okay. Well, thanks so much for joining us. And you have a wonderful day. Have a wonderful Father's Day, I guess, as well. And we'll see you soon.
Take care, Justin. Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Okay, guys. So that was just Lex Jurgen with one of the best books I've read to date. And I know I say that about the best this, the best that, but honestly, I love his book. So the book, again, is... There it is, guys. And you get on Amazon. It is 99. Okay, Man Rules. 99 rules for remasculating the millennial male, which is, I think, it's a very important tool to have in your toolbox. Happening. I've had the worst day today with technology. But anyway, I know I didn't get to all your comments, so I will do so now. Let us see what is here. Have a good night. Don't rush things. Start as a friend and see where it goes from there. Yeah, but sometimes once you're friend zoned, you're friend zoned. X does not like mark the spot to get out of it. Preach, girl. Sometimes you got to learn the hard way. Yep, my friends in relationships, I could see them. Red flags. Yeah, that happens a lot of the times, but nobody ever wants to listen to us. Red flags are bad. Paul, I just suggest you pick up the book because there's so many different things in this book that display bad experiences and good experiences. Even though it's a humorous book, like Lex was saying before, it's still very realistic. Like there's some real scenarios in there, and it's got some sound advice. I still say, okay, a man keeps his political opinions to tight circles, which is true. You don't go into a bar talking about political things right away. Men are not politically correct, nor are they belligerent assholes, which is true. Guys have a very crass sense of humor. So it doesn't mean that they're toxic or, oh my God, you're really bad. A man lends a hand in moderation. That's true. You don't want to be walked all over, you know? But anyway, good night, everyone. Thank you for joining me on this lovely Monday. And don't forget, stay frosty.